That's very interesting because you mentioned that because of the power structure out there, but beside power structure, we see that the wars are going on there. How wars are actually impacting the environment? Because you see that the war is going on in neighborhood of Europe between the Russia and the Ukraine, and Europe is very much part of it. On the other hand, we see Middle East, there is also conflict is going on. So how the wars are going to impact not only the environment but also the efforts that were being made by the sensible people and the countries who think that there should be some funds out there. If all the funds are being poured into the wars, how they are going to spend on the people's life?
Well, one thing while working in this climate change sector for over a decade now, I understand that it's not about availability of the funds. It's
Mhm.
about the political will of the global north to fund to global south under Paris Agreement. They don't want to fund global south because global south will do better if they start funding on climate change issues and disasters, and they don't want that because their relevance would be over in some decade or so because global south would start doing better in terms of mitigation and adaptation efforts. It's about political will. They have enough funds to spend on wars. And like you said, how war impacts our environment or climate change in general, it impacts a lot. It impacts actually in three phases. One is like pre-war, second is during war, and third is after war. Pre-war, lots of countries, they transport like heavy machineries, equipments, bombing stuff, which have lots of emissions involved. So they transport by air, by road, by sea, they transport, and that does involve emissions. Then their forces, they of course set up their camps and stuff, so that also involves emissions and destruction to environment. They do testing as well, that involves emissions. You name like any part of the world. I'm not like targeting just one country. And then during war, for example, there's like debris, the house damage, the damages to wildlife will contribute to ecosystem and food web.
Agriculture.
Agriculture, of course, the water infrastructures are damaged. You name like the whole environment is destroyed, the whole ecosystem and ecological damages are like irreparable for decades, And if you look at the data, there are tons of emissions involved because of ongoing wars in the region and beyond. And, it's in wars has contributed so much to carbon dioxide emissions that it's equivalent to, the European country size. If you look at them, they would emit in a year time period. So you can well imagine that how that is impacting environment in general. And we know that how, the impact of Hiroshima is still impacted. People still get cancer, that those sites are still not revived after decades, in terms of like ecological restoration. So the wars contributes a lot to ecological damages. And of course, the losses of human lives are also there. That's very sad that it is there. But particularly talking about climate change environment, it has devastating impacts and it takes decades to recover from that in terms of environment.